Humpty Dumpty real horror. They found the first body on Easter morning. Sarah Chen was walking her dog when she saw it. A man sitting against the old brick wall behind the elementary school. At first glance, he looked like he was sleeping. But when she got closer, she screamed. His skull had cracked open like an egg. Brain matter leaked down his face in thick, yellow streams. But here's the thing that made Sarah vomit right there on the sidewalk. He was still alive. Still blinking. Still trying to speak through lips that bubbled with fluid. The paramedics couldn't save him. How do you put a human head back together again? Detective Mike Torres had seen plenty of murders in his 20 years on the force, but this one was different. The victim, Harold Sampson, had no enemies, no debts, no reason for anyone to hurt him, and the way he died made no sense. The skull just cracked, the coroner explained, showing Torres the autopsy photos, like it was made of eggshell. But that's impossible. Human bone doesn't work that way. Torres studied the crime scene photos. The wall where they found Harold was old, maybe 60 feet high. Had he fallen? But there were no signs of impact. No blood trail. No explanation for how a perfectly healthy 35-year-old man's head could just split open. The second victim was found 3 days later. Amy Rodriguez, a kindergarten teacher, discovered sitting in her classroom after hours. Same impossible injury, skull cracked in a spider web pattern, contents leaking out, but somehow still conscious for several minutes before dying. This time, there was a witness. Little Tommy Martinez, 6 years old, had been hiding in the supply closet during after-school cleanup. He told Torres what he saw through terrified, white eyes. The big Eggman came through the window. He had no face, just cracks all over. He touched Miss Amy's head and it went crack like when I dropped my breakfast. Then he sat down next to her and waited. Torres thought the kid was traumatized, making things up, until the security footage proved him right. The camera showed a tall figure climbing through the second-story window. Shouldn't have been possible, but there it was. The figure moved wrong, like his joints bent in directions they shouldn't. When he turned toward the camera, Torres saw what Tommy meant about no face. Just a smooth, oval surface covered in hairline cracks. And when the thing touched Amy's head, her skull split instantly, like someone had hit it with a sledgehammer from the inside. The murders kept happening. Always the same pattern. Victims found sitting, skulls cracked open, dying slowly while their brains leaked out. And always, security cameras caught glimpses of the same impossible figure. The media went crazy? They called him the Easter Killer because of the egg-like head injuries. But Torres knew better? He'd grown up hearing the nursery rhyme, and now it felt like a warning. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses, and all the king's men, couldn't put Humpty together again? The breakthrough came when Torres visited the town's oldest resident, 89-year-old Mrs. Patterson. She lived in the same house her whole life, right across from that brick wall where the first body was found. "Oh honey," she said when Torres showed her the photos, "that's not the first time someone died there. Back in 1962, there was a boy." Mrs. Patterson told him about Edmund Humphrey. Kids called him Humpty because of his round face and egg-shaped head. Edmund was different. Special needs, the kind of kid other children picked on. His favorite spot was sitting on top of that old wall, watching the world go by. The other kids would throw rocks, Mrs. Patterson whispered. Call him names, tell him to jump. One day, they pushed him too far and Edmund had climbed higher than ever before, 60 feet up. The bullies surrounded the bottom of the wall, chanting jump, Humpty, jump. They thought they were being funny. Edmund looked down at them with tears in his eyes. Then he stepped off. His body hit the concrete with a sound Mrs. Patterson would never forget. Like a watermelon exploding. But it was his head that really stuck with her. It had cracked open so perfectly, like someone had drawn lines on an egg before dropping it. They couldn't put him back together, she said. Closed casket funeral? His mother moved away the next week. Never came back. Torres felt cold. What happened to the kids who bullied him? Mrs. Patterson's eyes went dark. Strange thing about that. 3 of them died over the years. Car accidents, they said. But I saw the bodies when they brought them out. Their heads looked just like Edmund's did. That night, Torres couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the pattern. All the victims had one thing in common. They worked with children. Harold was a school bus driver. Amy was a teacher. The others were coaches, daycare workers, pediatric nurses, people who were supposed to protect kids. Torres raced back to Mrs. Patterson's house. The bullies, he gasped. What were their names? She rattled off 5 names. Torres checked his files. 3 were dead. The car accidents from years ago. The other 2 were still alive. One was Harold Sampson, the bus driver. The other was Chief of Police Robert Mason, Torres's own boss. Torres tried calling Mason, but got voicemail. He drove to the chief's house. and found the front door open. Inside, Mason sat in his living room chair, skull cracked open like all the others. But this time, the killer was still there. Edmund Humphrey stood in the corner, exactly as he'd looked in 1962. 6 years old forever, wearing the same clothes he died in. His round face was pale as chalk, covered in the same crack patterns that had split his skull 60 years ago. But he was wrong. All wrong. His head tilted at an impossible angle. Dark fluid leaked from the cracks. And when he turned to look at Torres, his eyes were just empty holes. "All the king's horses," Edmund whispered in a voice like grinding glass. "And all the king's men." Torres reached for his gun, but Edmund moved faster than anything human should. In 1 second, he was across the room. His small, cold hand touched Torres's forehead. Torres felt his skull beginning to crack. "Wait," Torres screamed. "I wasn't one of them. I never hurt you." Edmund paused. His empty eye socket studied Torres's face. "You're right," Edmund said finally. "You protected children. You tried to find me." The pressure on Torres's skull stopped. "But someone has to know the truth." Edmund's cracked face smiled, showing teeth like broken eggshell. "Tell them," he whispered. "Tell them what happens to people who hurt children. Tell them Humpty Dumpty isn't just a nursery rhyme." Torres blinked, and Edmund was gone. Only the smell of rotting eggs remained. The official report said Chief Mason died of a brain aneurysm. The other murders were filed as unsolved. Torres never told anyone what really happened, but sometimes, late at night, he drives past that old brick wall, and sometimes, he sees a small figure sitting on top 60 feet up, watching the playground below, protecting the children now, instead of being hurt by them. They say nursery rhymes are just innocent songs for kids, but Torres knows better. Some of them are warnings, some of them are promises, and some of them are threats. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses, and all the king's men, couldn't put Humpty together again? But what they don't tell you in the rhyme is what happens after. What happens when the broken pieces refuse to stay dead? What happens when Humpty Dumpty gets back up?